James.
And I'm Teresa.
And this is the Creating Normal podcast, a podcast on living a creative life beyond mental illness,
where we share our successes and our struggles in life and in art. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Creating Normal. I'm Teresa Colon, and with me is James Prescott.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Excited about today's episode.
So if you're a returning listener, we want to thank you for coming back. And if you're new, we want to welcome you. So as we do every week, James, why don't you share how your week has been? How's your week?
My week has been pretty good. Got a bit of writing wise. It's been pretty good. Got some pieces done for people that I need to submit to, blog posts for other people, and been recording some podcasts, other podcasts. Mental health wise, it's been pretty good. Not too bad. I'm kind of getting on okay. It was a good week. Still always issues to deal with, always anxieties and stresses and stuff like that. That's what life is about. But generally, it's been pretty positive. How have you been, Teresa?
I have had a mixed week. I have been working forever, it feels like, on this stupid website. And it's not a stupid website. I'm really excited about this website. I'm really excited about the new Wounded Birds Ministry website. I'm also really over it. I'm also just really over this project. But there's some things that I want to do that I know are going to be awesome. And one of those is that I'm creating a new page, which for first-time visitors, when they come in, they can kind of get oriented a little bit with what Wounded Birds is, who I am, and what we do, and blah, 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 blah. And towards the bottom of it, it's an opportunity for people to connect with me on one of three different levels. Like, I don't have a diagnosis, and I think I need one, and I don't know where to begin, or I'm newly diagnosed and I'm just trying to figure this all out, or hey, I've been diagnosed and I'm really just looking for community. And each of those, there's a button at the bottom of each of those options that, in theory, you click that button, send me your email address, and you get a curated list of content off my website that will walk you through each of those different kind of tracks. And that has been we'll call it a real learning experience. Why don't we phrase it that way? Because it is everything I have never done before. And what I have found is that some of my existing providers, my existing vendors don't do some of what I need them to do. So anybody who's been following me on Twitter has been pretty much seeing me unleash a bunch of just frustration out into, the Twitterverse, because that feels like a safe place sometimes just to kind of yawp. Do you remember the movie Dead Poets Society?
I do. It's
one
of my all-time favorite movies. Yeah. Absolutely love that movie.
The best thing I think I got out of that movie was the word yawp. Because yesterday when I was in the middle of like all my frustration, all I wanted to do was yawp at the world. But on the other hand, it's been really good. Yeah, exactly. And then on the other hand, but I'm making progress. And I know that as soon as I saw one specific problem, and I'm 95% of the way there, the new website gets to be rolled out. And some of the things that I've been putting off to do because I was pushing to get the website out, because I have this one delay, those things are getting done. And so actually it's going to be a better product in the end, which I'm excited about, than it would have been otherwise. So, that I've been dealing with burnout, I've been dealing with frustration, and I've been dealing with, all those kinds of emotions. So it's been a good week, a mixed week. It's been a terrible week. That's how my week has been.
Wow. That is, I've seen that on social media. It's always a challenge. Technical stuff is not my strength either. So as I found out today, because I was recording a podcast and it all went wrong. Yeah, so I understand how difficult and challenging that must be. And it can be triggering. We talked about triggers in another episode, and you can check that out on our website. Yeah, like technical stuff not working is a trigger for me. Oh. And I think it probably is for you. I think that the reason for that is that it can be something that's we want to be able to control, and we think we should be able to control, and then sometimes we can't control it. That's why it can be a trigger for I suspect for a lot of people. On to today's subject.
Well, and I think that kind of takes us into our topic for this week, which is highly sensitive people. And James, this is something that, you and I have talked about a lot offline, just in our personal conversations. And I think that this is probably kind of your soapbox to climb up on. So why don't you kick us off?
Soapbox to climb up on. That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, but well, highly sensitive people. Yes, I'm a highly sensitive person. It is actually a condition. It's not something you make up. It's not, it's not just, oh, I'm sensitive. It's not a decision that you make consciously. There's a lot of science around this as well. I think there's about 100 species on the earth that are highly that can have highly sensitive traits where this condition is prominent, and about 20% of human beings are highly sensitive. And it's basically like, and the best way I can describe it is, it's how your brain works. So my brain, the boundaries at which my brain gets offended or hurt or triggered, I suppose, are higher than others. So, if I'm at a party and somebody makes a joke and there's a bit of banter going around, and that's all fine, and I know it's all jokes, and to start with, I will laugh along with it and I will enjoy it and stuff. But at some point, if it keeps going, something in me will feel violated, and something inside me will feel uncomfortable, and I will want to get up and leave, or I will feel I will feel upset inside. I will feel like I want to say something and tell that person to stop, because it's starting to hurt. It's it's very difficult, because when I was younger, I just thought that's just how I was, so I just let it control me. But now I've first I've kind of hardened up and got some life experience, and second, I understand now that this is just my brain.
Yeah.
I know people are just joking. I can be in a place where I know people are joking around, but inside of me, I'm feeling really violated and really upset. I'm much more self-aware of it now. But the problem is that a lot of people don't understand it, and there's a lot of stigma around it, and people start calling you a drama queen or an attention seeker or whatever for getting upset about something, or pansy or whatever, these kind of things. And actually, it's just your brain. It's not your fault. It's not your decision. Again, like we've talked about before, the only decision you have is how you can react to it. And because there's not much understanding around it, people don't know often how to react to it. People who aren't aware of the fact that it's just their brain, haven't had that done all the kind of work that I've done with, in therapy and CBT and coaching and stuff that I've had from people. They haven't got that, and they don't understand about what being highly sensitive is. It can be a lot harder for people. It can be quite painful. And we need to raise awareness and understanding about highly sensitive people, and about what it is to be highly sensitive, and about how to be with highly sensitive people and have relationships with them. And highly sensitive people need to know that they're not alone as well, because it can feel very lonely. Highly sensitive people are real. It's a real thing. And they're likely amongst you, because 20% of people are highly sensitive. I think that requires us all to be more sensitive. People who are not highly sensitive. People who are not highly sensitive need to be sensitive to those who are. And if you're highly sensitive, you need to learn to kind of manage that and learn how to respond to what your brain is telling you. So movement on both sides, it's not just one moving towards the other. That's kind of
right.
The kind of my summary of all of that and my experiences of that.
I have not been diagnosed as a highly sensitive person, but "You Are So Sensitive" was a recurring frame throughout my life, especially as a kid. "Oh, Teresa, you're so sensitive." And I think that looking back now, there was a lot happening with me emotionally that I didn't understand how to tap into, because the other phrase was "you're so dramatic." Nobody ever called me a drama queen, but "you're so sensitive" and "you're so dramatic" were just things I heard all the time. And I know now that it is cyclical for me, which in terms of how sensitive I am to things, because I have done, like you, a lot of that work. But I also know that it's when the voices in my head start getting louder, when they start talking me down, I become a lot more sensitive to what people around me are saying, or if I'm working on a particularly difficult trigger. Then if somebody says something that's related to that trigger and I'm not and it's not a trigger I'm responding well to, I will lash out, honestly, many times in response to that, because it'll trigger that. I'll have so much sensitivity around that particular point that it just doesn't get, it's just not handled well. And it doesn't matter, like you said, if they're joking or if they're teasing or if it's meant in love or any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. It hits on a point that I just can't handle sometimes.
Sounds very much my experience, and it's something that I only just come to light recently. People didn't really know or understand that about highly sensitive people until recently. And like anything, it's really easy to think that there's something wrong with you, or to think that maybe you start to believe all those labels, like I am a drama, you are a drama queen, or you are a attention seeker, or whatever,
Yeah.
or self-involved, or whatever, and it's probably not true, because I've definitely felt shame around all of that when it comes to being highly sensitive. And whilst there is an element of if you're highly sensitive, eventually if you allow it to control you and allow it to dictate how your behavior, you can become self-involved, and you can make things bigger than they are. But that's only if you let it control you. If you kind of go down the rabbit hole and just keep going. If you're highly sensitive, you're not a drama queen. You're not an attention seeker, and you that's just how your brain works, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. People who tell you to toughen up and get, that's just not helpful. I mean, you can build up resilience. That's a whole different thing, and you can build up mechanisms of how you respond to different things. You can train yourself to respond in different ways, but that is different from just saying, "I'll just toughen up," because you are always going to get triggered. If you're highly sensitive, those things will always upset you. But what you can do is learn how to manage that so that you respond differently and that you don't react to those things that are going on, but you can still acknowledge them, that
Yes.
they're there. Because it's really important that when you feel those things, that those emotions, that you acknowledge them and say, yes, this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling violated. I'm feeling hurt. I know these guys might be only joking. I actually might think it's funny, but inside of me, I'm feeling violated. So I need to respond to that in some healthy way.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we need to get to, so that it's not controlling us, and we don't think that we're kind of something wrong with us.
Yes.
So that's what we need to do.
Well, there's a few things that I know have helped me a lot. And first of all, therapy and working through triggers and journaling and all that stuff, the CBT stuff especially. But outside of that, there are components of self-care that I know I can do that help me minimize my receptiveness to some of those triggers. And specifically, sleep, obviously, but actively managing my stress levels is really important for me, because when I am really stressed out, my hearing isn't as good. So when somebody is saying something, I am more likely to misinterpret it when I am stressed out. And because I'm stressed out, I'm probably not sleeping well and my physical reactions are off anyway, and I'm having a more intense emotional experience to begin with. So, my reaction will be stronger, and it will be a legitimate reaction. It'll be a valid reaction, but it'll be outsized for what it might be otherwise if I were under normal stress levels. So for me, learning how to manage my stress levels in particular is really important for me to be successful in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there is hope. I mean, there is hope. This doesn't have to get you down. It doesn't have to control you. And
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. nothing wrong with being sensitive. You know, we need people who are sensitive.
There's a lot of bonuses to being sensitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually count it as a blessing that I am sensitive. I wouldn't want to change that.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't, because it helps me have healthier relationships, actually, in some ways, because it means that I am more, I can, you know, more sensitive to other people's feelings and how other people might be thinking. I can be more discerning, and, you know, I mean, I'm not saying like it makes me that I'm better than everyone else because I'm sensitive, or the people who aren't highly sensitive, or there's something wrong with them at all. Not at all. But I'm saying that, you know, we could all do with being a bit more sensitive, I think, if you see what I mean.
Well, it's empathy. You know,
Yes,
you have
yes,
more
that's the word.
empathy out of your sensitivity. I think that's really valuable. If there's one thing that I think we're lacking in this world, it is empathy. And I think that people who have empathy are able to better show grace and mercy, which is also something else we could use more of in this world.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I didn't realize I was an empath until recently, and I should have known because I'm sensitive. I didn't know until somebody pointed it out, but I am. That's why I feel uncomfortable when people are struggling next to me. That's why I get emotional about things a lot and cry a lot. It's why I connect with connect with characters in movies probably too emotionally and start crying all the time when something bad happens to them. It's like it's like sometimes I can't watch a movie that I've seen before because some of the scenes are awkward, and like I feel sorry for for some of the characters, you know, and that's because I'm an empath. You know, when something really bad happens, culturally, I feel it. You know, I feel it emotionally. I'm not saying that people who aren't sensitive don't. I'm just saying that it's heightened, I think, a little bit
Yeah.
when you're an empath or when you're sensitive.
I agree. Well, I think that brings us to the next segment this week, which is a tip or recommendation. And James, do you have any? What would you like to share with us this week?
I want to recommend. It's a book that I want to
Okay.
recommend this week. I've been reading it all week, and it's blown my mind. It's challenged me, discomforted me, inspired me. It's called I'm Still Here, and it's by Austin Channing Brown, who is a speaker and an author and does a lot of racial, there's a lot of racial equality work in the US, and is involved with Black Lives Matter and all these kind of things. And she's got a very powerful story. You know, it made me, as a white man, the book made me challenge me in a lot of ways to examine my own inbuilt biases and open my eyes to things that I didn't know were happening,
Yeah.
and to a kind of racist subculture that is still out there in wider culture. It's not limited to, you know, it's there in very small ways that we didn't even realize, and that as me as a white person didn't even realize. And it's a really, really important book and a much needed book. I really want to recommend it. It comes out on the 15th of May, so we'll probably be out by the time this podcast goes live, and I would recommend it to everyone. And Austin will be on my podcast soon as well, hopefully. So that's my recommendation for the week.
Well, that sounds really good. I think I may have to look into that book myself. My recommendation for this week is help desks. And, you know, I think that a lot of times I'm afraid to reach out to the support teams at these different companies that I work with, like MailChimp or whatever. And, you know, and I'll reach out on Twitter, or I'll ask, you know, I'll Google till the sun goes down. And what I'm realizing is how much time I'm wasting on doing a lot of this Googling to try to find the answer myself, when, you know, if I were just to reach out to the support desk, they could save me a lot of time, a lot of headache, and probably a fair amount of yapping if I would just, you know, maybe cut that short. So I think I'm going to put a new rule in place for me, which is 15 minutes and then go call the support desk. And that is my tip for the week is, you know, use those. They're there for a reason.
Oh, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Use them. They can be quite helpful, actually, bizarrely enough.
Yeah. And oftentimes they even point me, what I've been finding with this week is that they're actually pointing me at alternative ways of approaching some of the things that I'm trying to do that are better, more efficient, more effective. And that for me has been really interesting.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad they've been helpful. That's really good.
All right. Woo.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for this week, James.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
It's been a good episode. It's good to talk about this subject. Yeah. Yeah, this is something that we need to talk about more. So I'm glad we've done this episode today. Yeah.
Yes, me too. Me too. All right. Well, I guess then until next week, create courageously.
And love yourself fiercely.
Have a good week, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Creating Normal podcast. You can follow James on Twitter and Instagram at JamesPrescott77. You can follow Teresa on Twitter and Instagram at Teresa M. Cologne. Thanks for listening.